Why not a crow?
We are Candor Talk Live, the new progressive raw talk show discussing current hot political and social topics. The host is Dicey, www.candortalk.com.
All right, good evening, everybody. This is Candor Talk Live, and I'm your host, Dicey. And yes, the shows are typically supposed to be on Wednesdays, but unfortunately, when we can't do a show on a Wednesday, we try to make up shows like this. We probably should be giving people more forewarning on that, those people who do watch the show. So we do apologize for not being on Wednesdays. But if we're not here on Wednesdays, just always check back here at speaker.com or go to our website, www.candortalk.com. www.candortalk.com. Now, today's subject is, and the topic that we're going to discuss today is basically honor Trump and slap Trumpcare on the AHCA. Now, the AHCA is the American Health Care Act, which is basically a bill proposed by the Republican House to replace Obamacare. Now, what we've heard recently is that Donald Trump doesn't want Trumpcare to be associated with him. He doesn't want that name to be associated with him. And the thing is, we started really digging into that and saying that doesn't really make sense that Trump wouldn't want to do that. I mean, let's just think about it. Trump slaps his name on a board game, hotels, water, magazines, steaks, wine, mortgage, vodka, a fake university. I mean, a university that was never even registered or accredited as a university. He puts his name on clothes, an airline, a boat, a shuttle. But now, all of a sudden, he wants us to refrain from calling the AHCA his bill. The truth is, the bill is Trumpcare. It is being promoted by Donald Trump. He's accepting it as his signature legislation. He keeps on discussing it as something that he wants to pass. He's pushing it and negotiating with different Republicans in order to try to get it to pass. So essentially, it is Trumpcare. This is a bill that if it goes to his desk, he is going to sign. It is Trumpcare. More accurately, if you look at the actual bill, it's really more Trump could care the fuck less. Let me say that again. If you really look at the bill and analyze that actual bill, what it really is Trump could care the fuck less. But let's just be candid here. This is called Trumpcare. It's a failing bill that's been considered DOA before you can even say the word one. Okay? The truth is that Trumpcare isn't that dissimilar to most of what Trump endeavors to do. Once he's affiliated with something, the idea tanks. And if you look at the AHCA, it has so much opposition, not just from the left, but also from the right, that it's already DOA. As a matter of fact, Senator Rand Paul said that this bill, the AHCA, is DOA, which is dead on arrival. But Trump doesn't want his name to be associated with it, which is just so perplexing considering that he slaps his name on every single thing. And he may have successfully conned his way into the White House, but he's failing at being in the White House. This guy is used to failing at things. He's not a success story. Even getting into the White House, he conned his way into the White House, and he can't even do the job. But now here comes the AHCA, which will be really the first signature legislation that Donald Trump has put forth this entire time that he's been in office. Even though President Obama and other presidents had signed bills by now, Donald Trump just has not signed any. He hasn't signed any legitimate bills right now, and he really needs this to pass because he promised so many of his supporters that they were going to repeal and replace Obamacare. But the truth is, this doesn't really repeal it entirely. It just changes certain provisions in there, which make it much more beneficial to the wealthiest people in the United States, as opposed to essentially making it affordable for all people. But anyway, the reality is that even though Donald Trump says, look, I don't want you to put my name on it, don't make it Trumpcare, it is Trumpcare. And you have to call it Trumpcare because that is what it is. And the bill is a failure. It sucks. It's a terrible bill. It has offended both sides of the aisle. It's been able to unify Democrats and Republicans against it. It is not a success. It is not something that is likely going to pass. And it has gotten widespread disdain. And let me just let you hear a little bit about Trumpcare so you can hear about why it is such a failure and exactly why we're making this video and this recording today and this show today is for you to see that Trumpcare is actually a failure. And that it is important that you attribute that failure to the person who's really responsible for pushing it forward. You can attribute it to Paul Ryan, but at the end of the day, they attributed Obamacare to President Obama, and which was really the Affordable Care Act, which was not called Obamacare, but that's what they called it. If you're the president of the United States and you are pushing this particular legislation, it is going to get attached to you. And this legislation, the AHCA, is really bad. Now, I want you to listen to what Cory Booker talks about. He talks about he breaks down the AHCA, and you'll hear about why exactly this is such a failure. Here we go.
So the Republicans have introduced their health care bill. This is Trumpcare, and it is a failure. It is a bad bill violating all of the promises that we heard from President Trump. Let me go through them one by one. These are the big, bright lines that you should be aware of. One is this is a bill that will make health care coverage for Americans more expensive. Overall, it shifts the burdens of paying for our tax system away from the wealthiest Americans and shifts that tax burden down so that middle-class Americans and working-class Americans and poor Americans are going to be facing higher health care premiums. Specifically, though, the group hurt worse is middle-aged Americans, people from their 50s to their early 60s. What you're going to see for them is about a $5,000 increase in premiums. Why? Because they're lifting a cap that was on during for the ACA, for so-called Obamacare, lifting a cap that was protecting middle-aged Americans. In addition to that, number two is you're going to see worse coverage. Remember, with the Affordable Care Act, there was a basic part of coverage that every American had, which included everything from preventative care, prenatal care, pregnancies, even mental health coverage. This was so important, not just for individuals in America, but for us as a nation to keep costs low. Why? Incentivizing people to get preventative care actually helped us to lower overall healthcare costs so that we detected problems early, not when they're more expensive, when they become full-blown healthcare problems. And so this is worse coverage that's going to cost everybody a lot more money. And in fact, seeing people having to come out of their pocket a lot more. In addition to that, it covers, number three, it covers fewer people. And it does that because this is an attack on two of the things that were actually best about the Affordable Care Act, best about Obamacare. Number one was the Medicaid expansion. That helped us to get over 10 million more Americans covered. And what we're seeing now with this attack on Medicaid is that it's going to restrict the amount of people, working class people, sick people, senior citizens in nursing homes, poor folks, all of them, we're going to see people squeezed out of having coverage. And we have one group already, Standard & Poor's, an independent oversight agency that looks at an analysis of this kind of economics, saying between 6 and 10 million Americans could lose coverage for that part as a whole. But don't forget also about Medicare. You heard Donald Trump promise over and over, I'm not going to hurt Medicare, I'm not going to touch Medicare. Well, this takes away in taxes, people making over $250,000 a year get tax breaks in the money that they were paying into the Medicare trust fund, making it more solvent. By cutting those taxes on the wealthy, what they're ended up doing now is actually making that pool less solvent, actually taking years off of the lifespan of Medicare. And that is directly opposed to what Donald Trump says. So here we have the Republican plan, Trumpcare. It is failing in these three ways. I'm going to go into more specifics on this. Please tune back in to find out more of the facts about why this is a bad bill, and we must fight to stop it.
Okay, so there you hear Senator Cory Booker from New Jersey basically discussing why Trumpcare is a really, really bad bill. And if you heard all the things that he said in there, you realize that Trumpcare is a bad bill. This is not just people resisting because they have nothing better to do. Trumpcare is a disaster, and it will affect millions of people, human beings. The GOP doesn't care about human lives because profit supersedes humanity to the GOP. There is something very ominous about people who support corporate interests over the lives of fellow citizens. Trump promised everyone would be covered. That was false. He said that we could buy insurance across state lines. Allegedly, that's going to be in phase 2, so that's false. And because we all know that phase 2 was never going to happen. That he's just going to get this bill out and people are just going to move on or protest or forget about it. There's not going to be a phase 2. He promised that people wouldn't die in the streets, and that's partially true because people are probably most likely going to die in their homes. They're not going to walk outside and they just drop dead because they didn't have health care. They're just most likely going to lay in their beds until they die. So yeah, maybe he won't have people dying in the streets, but he will have people dying at home because this bill is a tragedy, and it is a travesty of the highest proportion. And anybody that's supporting this particular bill is not informed, or there's somebody who's going to profit a lot from it, like an insurance company, or or somebody who works for an insurance company. Because what's going to happen too, which is one thing that you need to know, is that yes, there was basically penalization in the Obamacare bill, which would penalize you for not being registered. However, that money would be basically go through the tax system. Now what they're doing is that you're going to be penalized basically 30% of whatever your monthly premium would have been had you bought into this AHCA system, right? So if you did buy into the AHCA system, then you obviously don't have the penalty. But if you didn't buy into it, there's a premium amount that you would have had you bought into it, and you're going to pay 30% of that for not registering in. And think about it. If they're going to ask you to pay 30% of the premium, just think about it. You weren't even able to get coverage in the first place. So clearly, you're not capable of getting coverage. But instead, you're going to be penalized. And that money is going to go to the insurance companies. So basically, you're just going to be enriching the insurance company because you could not afford to get health insurance. It is the biggest sham ever. And to see Donald Trump trying to disassociate himself from it in terms of the name of it while he's simultaneously pushing it is not fair to anybody. It's not realistic. And we should not allow it. Don't allow Trump to pretend this bill isn't a direct result of his actions. Because here, I'm going to play a clip right now that will show you what Donald Trump specifically said about the bill and how he's been talking about the bill. And if you think that, he shouldn't be the one associated with us, he shouldn't be the one to be blamed for the consequences of whatever happens with this, that's not true. He's literally endorsing this particular bill, and if it gets on his desk, he's going to sign it. So listen to this clip right now from Donald Trump actually talking about the bill and essentially endorsing the bill. So for those of you who think this isn't Trumpcare, it is Trumpcare. Let's listen to Donald Trump.
Hello, everybody. Mr. Vice President. Mr. President. I want to thank each of the House committee leaders for being with us today. Your devotion and leadership has been amazing. I want to just applaud you and the diligent work of your committees to advance the Obamacare repeal and replacement legislation that we've been talking about for a long time and that we've been running with, and I ran with it, I can tell you. And that's what people want. They want repeal and replace. The bill passed just now through Ways and Means, and it will, I think the committee just voted recently, right? Yep. Your other committee, Energy and Commerce. And it was a very good vote. And congratulations, that was a good job. Amazing. We must act now to save Americans from the imploding Obamacare disaster. Premiums have skyrocketed by double digits and triple digits in some cases. And as an example, Arizona, which I talk about all the time, 116% increase, and it's going up a lot higher. 17 would be a disaster for Obamacare. That's the year it was meant to explode because Obama won't be here. That was when it was supposed to be. It'll get even worse. As bad as it is now, it'll get even worse. Choices are disappearing as one insurer drops out after another. Today, 1/3 of all counties now have only one insurer on the Obamacare exchanges, and the exchanges themselves are a disaster. The House Repeal and Replace plan ends the Obamacare tax hikes, cutting taxes by hundreds of billions of dollars. It eliminates the Obamacare mandate that forces Americans to buy government-approved plans. We all know that one. It provides states with flexibility over how Medicaid dollars are spent, giving power from Washington and back to local government, which we all want to see. They're going to do a much better job. And the plan empowers individual Americans to buy the health insurance that is right for them, not the plan forced on them by government. You all remember you can keep your doctor, you can keep your plan. I know, Greg, you've never heard that, right? But it was said many, many times, and it turned out to be not true. This is the time we're going to get it done. We're working together. We have some great results. We have tremendous spirit. And I think it's something that's just going to happen very shortly. So thank you all very much. We're going to get to work. Thank you.
All right, so there you hear Donald Trump basically endorsing the AHCA. He's talking about how repealing and replace Obamacare, how it already passed in the Ways and What It Means Committee or whatever. He's talking about those things. He's excited about it. This is Trumpcare. No matter how he tries to spin it, no matter what he says, this is Trumpcare. And if you hear him after the way he's discussing the bill, why doesn't he want his name associated with it? The GOP had no problem attributing the the Affordable Care Act to Obama, hence Obamacare. But why wouldn't Trump want his allegedly signature bill to be named after him? It can't be because he knows it's a failure, right? I mean, because he's used to failing. I mean, we've been able to prove that through the list of companies we were able to put forth earlier. He's used to failing. Or is it because he doesn't even know or care what's in the bill? Since we all know he hasn't even read the bill, right? We can all agree here that he hasn't read the bill. He doesn't know what's in the bill. I think he also knows the bill has so much resistance. It hasn't been vetted, and he needs a reason to be able to blame Paul Ryan and President Obama when the whole thing explodes. Well, if they stick Obama to Obamacare, then Trumpcare is going to stick to Trump. After all, that's what he's best at. Slapping his name on an opportunity that hasn't been properly vetted, it fails, he blames someone else. Why should this be any different? Before he tries to escape responsibility, I'm slapping his name on the bill. And I'm going to continue to call the AHCA Trumpcare because that is what it is. And he's the one that's going to sign it when it lands on his desk. It's Trumpcare. Just like Trump Hotels, just like Trump Vodka, just like Trump Shuttle, just like Trump Airline, just like Trump Board Game, just like Trump Magazine, just like Trump Steaks, just like Trump Wine, just like Trump Water, just like Trump University, just like Trump Mortgage, and every other failure of Trump. Call it what it is. It's Trumpcare. The buck stops with Trump. It doesn't pass on to somebody else. Nobody else is going to be responsible for the fact that Donald Trump was incapable of getting this bill to either pass or getting this bill to be successful. No one's going to be responsible for it other than Donald Trump. No one else should be responsible for it other than Donald Trump. I mean, yes, you can obviously hold the House Republicans responsible or Paul Ryan and them for pushing the bill forward, but it's going nowhere. It's null and void. One, if it does not get signed by Donald Trump. Donald Trump not only is the person who's going to sign it, but he's also advocating for that bill. And the fact that he doesn't like it is even more of a reason to put it on his name, put his name on the bill. Because if he put his name on the bill, then he holds full responsibility for the outcome of that. The same way that they held Obamacare over President Obama's head. Donald Trump does not get to walk away from liability because he's all of a sudden the president of the United States. He doesn't get to walk away from liability. He's still liable for whatever happens to the American people, the same way they made President Obama liable for whatever happened to the American people. This is the same exact situation, you guys. So call it Trumpcare. Call it exactly what it is. And if that offends Donald Trump, oh fucking well. You shouldn't have proposed this fucking bullshit in the first place. It is Trump could care the fuck less. That's really what it is. And he knows that it goes against all his campaign promises. And he knows that he's lied to his constituents. And he knows that he's going to cut Medicaid because that's essentially what they're trying to do. And he knows that there are going to be millions of people that are going to die because as a result of it. People are going to die. They may not die in the streets, but they're going to die. So he knows all those things. So what is he basically trying to do? Take himself out of it? No. We're going to keep him in it and we're going to hold him responsible. So from this point on, it is Trumpcare. Don't call it anything else. And anything that Trump endorses or puts his name on, it fails. That's our show tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. We try to be here every single Wednesday. Our shows are now condensed now. to less than 25 minutes because we think that it's easier to transmit the information in less than 25 minutes because it keeps people more engaged as opposed to having these very, very long shows that just go on and drag on and drain everybody else. And essentially, at the end of the day, the whole point is lost. So we're going to close the show out today, and I thank you guys so much for tuning in. And we try to do the shows, like I was going to say, on Wednesdays at 11 p.m. But I'm starting to think that it might be a better idea to do it on Saturdays at night, considering that a lot of these news networks aren't broadcasting, but we'll be looking into that. But thank you guys for tuning in, and I am Dicey, and I'm signing out until next time. Resist. Have a good one.